Welcome to episode 252 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench podcast network. He's Tom Bell. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media for Empty the Bench at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Follow us on all our social media platforms at ETB Network, youtube.com/ETB Network, where we have close to 890 subscribers. Please help us. Our trek to 900 and 1,000 is very close. So please help us on that as well. If you don't want to listen on the video side, listen to wherever you get your podcasts. We are up on all those platforms as we speak. I was checking the other day, so we are up on all those platforms. Also, this show is presented by Playback as well as the Empty the Bench Network. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. The NBA will be back. We are officially in NBA opening month, as scary as that sounds. As happy October, by the way. As
3 weeks. 3 weeks from the night we're recording this.
And the plan for now, is to do NBA opening night, which is Knicks, Celtics, and Lakers, Timberwolves, I think.
I believe you are correct.
And it's kind of weird now because, and one of the stories we're going to talk about, actually, you know what? I'll tease that for now. A certain trade has changed the way some of those games have been scheduled. But a lot to get into. Another baseball-heavy episode as the Major League Baseball playoffs have officially gotten underway as we speak. And we have some upsets to talk about right off the bat as well. So we'll get into the Major League Baseball playoffs, wild card rounds. Our Yankees don't play until the ALDS, as they had the best record in the American League. Somehow they managed to survive that with all the injuries and all the bad pitching.
And the month and a half of a slump.
That's true. Well, if it wasn't for the big start at the beginning of the year, they probably don't have the best record in the league.
Yeah.
Well, I should say American League, because the Dodgers had the best overall record in baseball.
First time in 10 years that no team has reached 100 wins.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I think the Dodgers only got like 98.
Wow, that's crazy. Usually we're good for 2 or 3 of those a year, aren't we? Usually.
Yeah. Instead, we got a couple of 100 lost teams, including the White Sox. We'll talk about them again. We'll talk about the A's as it's the end of an era. You mentioned the Dodgers, obviously Shohei Ohtani, the story of the Major League season in terms of good stories. So we'll talk about his home run ball, because now that has a couple of interesting storylines around it. Unfortunately, a couple of passings we have to talk about. Whatever is next with the NBA over at ESPN for their coverage. And Davante Adams in the headlines. We have one football story to talk about, as it appears he is now officially requesting a trade, which means a certain someone's favorite team might end up being in the mix because of his quarterback.
You know what? I can't be too mad about it, because I feel like we need a wide receiver really bad, but I don't know if I buy it 100% yet. Also, because you mentioned the NBA, a big trade, which is still not officially official is the terms we like to use.
Oh, you just mentioned that before the trade. You teased that already.
Well, I'm just saying that it's not officially official, but let's just say your favorite team might be in for a big change.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of, for full context, we kind of already talked about that. If you want our immediate reactions, the two of us and Ben Cruz, go check out the latest live stream we did on Friday night when that certain trade ended up breaking. We have to start, however, with we have 2 passings that we got to talk about, but one, we'll start with the baseball. And because this one really, I mean, both of them really unexpected, but Pete Rose, Major League Baseball's legendary hit king, 4,000 hits. A guy with a lot of controversy, should be in the Hall of Fame. If it wasn't for his controversy, he would undoubtedly be in the Hall of Fame. Like I said, he is the hit king. He is one of the most legendary names that Major League Baseball has ever had, passing away. Really kind of unexpected. I don't know if you saw the tweet from Ric Flair, basically saying, like just the other day, the two of them were at a autograph, one of those signing conventions.
I think
together.
in Nashville, right?
I believe so, yeah. And now all of a sudden Pete Rose is gone. I believe the New York Post reported at the day that we're recording this, natural causes, cardiovascular disease and diabetes playing role in.
He was 83 years old. He was up there in age for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, when I saw the story break, first of all, and this is whenever you see a story that you don't 100% or you're in shock of, like then Nico, who's our social media head, messaged me and says, "Did you see that Pete Rose passed away?" And I'm like, "No, come on, don't play with me like that." Like, so now me as my news background. I have to go find a million sources to prove that story. And now I see Yahoo Sports, I see ESPN all over, I see TMZ. Which, by the way, TMZ has been like the first to all the like big deaths for some reason.
I know.
But they've been right. Unfortunately, they've been right. Like, so I see this. Pete Rose passes away at 83, 4,256 career hits, all-time hit leader by quite a far margin, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. 17 All-Star appearances. He played 24 years in the bigs. He played with the Reds, obviously his career with the Reds.
Big Red Machine.
Absolutely legendary, exactly, with the Big Red Machine, probably the most famous Reds teams ever. Played as well. He had stints with the Phillies, had stints with the Expos, and then right before his banishment from Major League Baseball, actually served as a manager.
Well, he was one of the first player managers.
Player managers, yeah.
And that actually is what got him in trouble because he was gambling on games that he was managing. Now, I think I've told you this before in the whole gambling space. Do you know what the semi getting away with gambling is when you're an athlete?
What do you mean?
Or no?
Semi.
So you can't bet on your team to lose.
Yeah.
Because that means you could be throwing a game.
Right. That should not be given. I mean, we talked about that earlier this year when we had a couple of banishments and
Jonte Porter.
Porter, exactly.
And not a player, but Shohei's trainer or whatever, or friend, whatever you want to call it at this point. But yeah, this was unfortunate. Now, his career, by the way, one of the greatest nicknames of all time, the Charlie Hustle.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he played with intensity.
He proved that when you play hard, you earn your stats and you earn your career. Now, people are going to have two different thoughts about him. The people who got to see him play, or like us, we got to see videos of him play. And then you get the people who don't like him because of his gambling issues and his attitude off the field. And the weird thing is, he was a huge ambassador to the sport after the ban.
Yeah.
And I think at one point, like, he was on Fox Sports' pre-show coverage during the playoffs. I think he was on there at some point. And by the way, I actually have a autograph hat of in my room from him. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I have that at least to look at. But
yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's very weird to think about Pete Rose's legacy because obviously, we talk about these days the major league sports, the major league organizations, to use the words that you say, being in bed with the gambling companies when you look at the sponsorships and everything. And Pete Rose is from a different time period where that was just not allowed. That was just not a thing.
Oh, it was what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you would get smashed with a hammer if you gambled back then.
If you brought sports and gambling kind of in the same sentence, especially considering, Major League Baseball, Nick, was one of the earliest victims of that stuff when you think about 1919
Black Sox.
Chicago
Yeah.
Black Sox scandal and throwing games. So something like Pete Rose betting on his team, like just the mere thought of it was enough to warrant a no. Obviously the world that Pete Rose played in versus the world that we're in right now,
Totally different, night and day.
Right, night and day. Because now, I'd say now it's not just that we're more open about gambling and sports gambling. We're more open just about gambling, period. And you look on any sports broadcast. Hey, there's this sports betting app. Hey, there's this sports betting app. The sports gambling market has exploded.
It's the most competitive space now in, I would say, and this might be a bold statement, I think the gambling space is the most competitive business right now out there in the world. And I know people could say, well, you have this business. Gambling is everywhere. Whether it's the U.S., internationally, it's everywhere.
My point is, I think those of this generation, and I guess we'll use our age, like the 90s on to now, are probably more forgiving of Pete Rose, considering what the world is like now. I would say anybody before the 90s probably will shun Pete Rose and say he was outright, deserved to be banned.
The way I look at it is, he did break the rules. We can't deny that he didn't break the rules. He did. At the time, he broke the rules, and I'm sure he knew what he was doing. He had to know what he was doing.
Yes, absolutely. And you and I 100% agree. I think our thing, and we've talked about it before, like we talked about it especially last year when we talked about the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's the idea of, and some of it I think is a little bit of sour grapes because, Nick, the generation of players that you and I grew up with, because they were connected to the steroid scandal, which is bad in itself, but it feels, I don't know if you feel the same way. It's like, one, I understand why they're not in the Hall of Fame because of the connections, but two, it feels like the generation of baseball we grew up with is kind of being ignored because of it.
I thought you were going to go one step further and say, like, our generation's PED scandal is like the gambling stuff that Pete Rose dealt with.
No,
that's
but
where I thought you were going to go.
think, but you are right when you say that because, you think about the names that aren't in the Hall of Fame because of their scandals. Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Roger Clemens. A-Rod.
Oh, the only one that's in because he's a friend of baseball is David Ortiz.
Well, I should be clear. He was connected, but he was never officially, I guess.
He was never officially proved. Yes.
But the whole thing in itself kind of, the fact that he was named in a couple of reports already gives the scratching of the head. Yeah.
In the Mitchell report, a report actually did come out that he officially failed a PED test, but the reason he gets the what's the word I'm looking for? The excuse is because that test legally was not supposed to be revealed. Like everybody else's test on that list was not supposed to be revealed. So that's the only reason why he gets a pass. But
it goes back to that conversation about like because he was let in, even though legalities and stuff. It's like, well, why don't you let the others in? And more importantly, why is this man not let in?
Well,
but again, it goes back to the idea again. Of the time period, he did break the rules. So
there's another issue here, though, too, which a lot of people are not discussing. Like I listen to all the different shows; they're not talking about it. When he broke the hitting records and all that stuff, where did his stuff end up in?
Well, it wasn't Cooperstown.
No, it did end up in Cooperstown.
Did end up in Cooperstown.
People, I don't hear enough shows talking about that, where his cleats and his jersey, and I think
so they're willing to put his stuff in Cooperstown.
Thank you. That's the point I'm trying to make. That no one is talking about this enough. That his Major League Baseball wanted his stuff for marketing value in the Hall of Fame, but you know what? He broke the rules. And the other thing I'm not understanding is basically Pete Rose was screwed one way or the other when they were negotiating how they were going to handle his punishment. I've never heard, and in today's time, I've never heard it, except for Jonte Porter, who got banned. I think he got officially banned permanently.
Yes.
But that was only the second time I've ever heard of a permanent ban for anything like that.
Well, I mean, a second time I heard a permanent ban for something along the lines of gambling. I mean, I know, granted, this is player versus owner, but we saw Donald Sterling get banned from the NBA for
Well,
racist
he had a
remarks.
whole heck of a lot of issues too.
Yeah.
But my point is, if Major League Baseball and the Hall of Fame is willing to put his actual belongings in the Hall of Fame that prove that he played in baseball, you gotta put him in the Hall of Fame. You have to. That's not right.
It's one of the most he leaves one of the most complicated legacies in Major League Baseball history, because one of the greatest players ever, arguably the greatest hitter ever, but also at the same time sparking one of the biggest controversies that stretches. We're still talking about it to this day, especially given the state of gambling in its place in the world right now.
I mean, I'll say it one more time just because you mentioned that I've said it many times already. You're in bed with the gambling companies still. You're making millions upon millions upon millions of dollars with DraftKings and FanDuel and BetMGM and all these companies. And you're telling me you're going to be a hypocrite now and not put him in.
I mean, have you seen Twitter as of late trying to make the comparisons between Pete Rose and Shohei Ohtani?
That was bad. I saw that. I'm like, come on. They're two completely different things, first of all. One is his friend who basically tried to get him caught, and Pete Rose did it to himself. That's the other thing. Pete Rose did this to himself. Like, he has no one to blame except for himself.
Right.
So, is it bad? Yes. Is it unfortunate that he was not alive to be put into the Hall of Fame? Yes. I think that's a travesty, to be honest, that he's not in the Hall of Fame before he passed away. And you know what? I was talking to some guys from around the network, and I said, watch, Major League Baseball is going to put him in now because he's not alive. They didn't want him to have the accolade while being alive.
Which is kind of sad, because Rob Manfred had a couple of different opportunities too. Well, because he was welcomed on the field for, I think it was a Phillies event.
Yes, that was, I think, 2016 or 2017. I think you're talking about.
And I thought progress was going to be made there.
See, and I don't know if you agree with me on this next statement, but if Rob Manfred had made that move, even though it would have been PR, his reputation would have actually gone up if he had done that.
In some people's eyes. Like I said, I think you still have some old school fans who say absolutely not.
Absolutely. There's always going to be a 50-50 split.
So for those fans, I think his reputation would be worse.
Yes and no.
I said for those fans.
Well, no. I'm saying yes and no, because some people will say, oh, he's actually recognizing a career that should have been in the Hall of Fame. The old-fashioned fans care about the Hall of Fame. That's what they care. They care that they do it by the book. Now I know what you're saying, like, because technically he didn't do it by the book. He played the game by the book. Let's make sure we talk in technicalities in that regard.
Yeah.
One of the greatest ever do it. One of the toughest players ever do it. By the way, he wouldn't survive in this era of baseball today because of how hard he played.
Yeah.
You couldn't slide the way Pete Rose took out people at second base and the catcher.
He won an all-star game by taking out a catcher.
I've heard stories that, like, he was in the clubhouse during the all-star break and, like, he would say, let's go, we're going to win this game. Like, you don't see that anymore.
Nah. It's completely different generations. That's the thing. It's kind of funny to think about.
But he should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, especially with the whole gambling issue, he has to be in the Hall of Fame because of what Major League Baseball is doing.
All right, let's now move on. MLB postseason is underway. The time we're recording this, it's Tuesday night. 3 games of night 1 of the wild card series have wrapped up. So we're recording this obviously before any of the game 2s that take place the day that this airs. So if the Tigers or the Royals or anybody has clinched and moved on at this point, you and I have no knowledge of it.
Well,
but
we'll talk about scenarios, though. in the meantime.
Well, we will say it is kind of shocking because as of the time we're recording this, we are 3 for 3 when it comes to
upsets.
Yeah, Royals beat the Orioles. The Tigers have beaten the Astros, and the Mets have beaten the Brewers.
And I was talking to you beforehand, and we both agreed the most shocking one is probably Detroit beating Houston.
Yeah, I mean, Houston had made its surge. You know, they started the year, they had all the injuries to their bullpen, so they struggled out the gate. But in typical Astros fashion, had a summer surge, end up taking the division. Thank you, Mariners, for your 10-game. You had a 10-game division lead, and then you lost it all in a month. I think got to say the Mariners and Twins, two of the biggest collapses in modern baseball.
Yeah, well, first of all, if the Twins made it, the Yankees would have somehow beat them because their record against the Twins in the playoffs.
But the Twins, I think, just a couple of weeks ago, had a 98% chance to make the playoffs.
What does that go to show? The percentages, or what is that? You can't win the games on paper?
The numbers lie sometimes.
That's true. But you can't win on paper. You actually have to play the games to determine if you're going to make the playoffs.
And how funny that the Mets and Braves actually ended up managing to split that doubleheader to both get in.
Before we get to, can we talk about that for a second? Because of that whole scenario that happened on Sunday. So obviously, and I talked about this with Ben on Hitting for the Cycle, actually, that Hurricane Helene, which was massive. And by the way, prayers out to everybody in Florida and up the southern coast that it was a bad storm. It damaged a lot of homes and a lot of people died, actually, by the way.
Yep. So
just prayers that hopefully everyone is able to rebuild and everything gets back to normal. But that storm comes in, it disrupts the Mets-Braves series originally, and now they have to move the games to Sunday. The season was supposed to be over already because people were complaining that the Mets had to go from, the Mets and the Braves both had to go from clinching to playing in the playoffs the next night.
Yeah.
And people are blaming Rob Manfred, and I don't know if it's 100% fair to blame Rob Manfred.
I don't know if it falls on Major League Baseball or if it falls on the Braves couldn't we have done this at a neutral site?
That's what Ben and I talked about, and I brought it up. Like, why couldn't they go to Milwaukee? They could have gone to Milwaukee and played those games. There was so many places they could have gone, and they could have moved the games in advance before the storm came in.
Absolutely. At the same time, I don't exactly fault the Mets or the Braves with what happened. The Diamondbacks didn't win enough games. First time, by the way, what we talked about pre-show meeting. First time since, the Tigers and Cardinals played in the World Series 06, and both teams the next season.
Defending World Series teams.
Yeah. That the defending league champions both end up missing the playoffs the next year.
That's a crazy thought because usually, but that also goes to show that the wild card matters way more than it once did.
Oh, the fact that we have 3 wild card spots now, especially, yeah. I mean, Nick, it's when the next CBA comes up, they're skipping 14. They're going to go to a 16-team league tournament.
Which means they're going to have to add another wild card if that's the case.
2 wild cards to each league.
That's going to be awful. I'm telling you. Because think about that now. Half the league is going to be in the playoffs.
Yep.
Isn't the NFL doing that already now?
Well, I mean, don't the NBA and NHL do that already?
The NBA made a mockery of that whole putting half the league in. But I just can't. Major League Baseball doesn't work. You can't have too many teams in. It's a scheduling nightmare, number one, in Major League Baseball because of the whole localized feel to it. So it makes it harder. But just to circle back, I can't blame Major League Baseball 100% for this. If you're going to blame Major League Baseball, you got to blame the Braves too. Because the Braves said they had to have the games.
All right. But now let's look at this postseason in general. So right now, wild card series, we have the Royals versus the Orioles. The winner will play the Yankees.
That's a good series, by the way.
This weekend, absolutely. And then you have the Astros playing the Tigers. The winner will play the Guardians starting this weekend. On the National League side of things, you have the Mets taking on the Brewers, and the winner of that will play Philadelphia in a division series. and then the Padres versus the Braves. The winner will play the Dodgers in the division series.
I mean, it's all good teams. I can't complain on that front. Yeah, I'm looking at the bracket. By the way, as of this recording, the Padres are destroying the Braves right now.
All right, so we're not going to have all upsets, I guess, unless we have a major comeback.
It's 3-0 right now, currently in this recording. So,
oh, that's not destroying.
Well, against the Braves team that everyone thought was going to dominate.
Okay, well, did you not watch the first Mets? By the way, first game one of that doubleheader, Mets Braves, probably game of the year.
Oh, not even a question. I mean, Francisco Lindor probably saved the Mets' asses, probably, with that home run.
Oh, but by the way, because I know all the conspiracy stuff was being out there about Sale not pitching, but their Braves are in the wild card. Something happened, I think, with his back.
Back spasms.
He's not on the wild card roster, so they're in this
got
series
hurt legitimately. Yes.
They're in the playoffs with no ace.
Well, he was a possible Cy Young candidate too, right?
He probably will win the Cy Young.
It was him, and also the Tigers pitcher is up for the Cy Young award too.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at the brackets, though, something tells me that the Mets are just going to win that series just because the Brewers don't win anything.
It would just fit with the baseball craziness. It would fit with the craziness that has happened with this Mets team ever since Grimace threw out that first pitch.
By the way, Mets-Phillies would be incredible just for a tri-state area fan who wants to go to the games also.
Imagine, Nick, for the NL side, we get Mets-Phillies and Dodgers-Padres in the division series.
It's pretty much localized if you think about it on both ends of it.
In the time that we were growing up, those matchups would only be possible in the NLCS because back then, when there was one wild card, you couldn't play your divisions.
Right. That stupid rule, which I don't understand. And then just looking on the other side, I'm kind of shocked that the Royals won game one.
Well, let's go to the take that we had, I guess, right off the back, especially because we're already getting to the halfway point. Jeez. If the O's and the Astros both get eliminated in the wild card series, there's no excuse for the Yankees. You got to win this. You got to win the pennant.
Freaking win.
Well, let me be clear. You have, because I know where you're going with. You have to win. You have to win the pennant.
The pennant.
The World Series is going to be tough because, if you're going to put a gun to my head, well, if you're going to hold me to the journalism standards, Nick, technically my preseason pick is in a good spot because I picked the Phillies and they're the number 2 seed right now in the NL. So I got to stick with them.
Who did you have on the other side, though?
I think I had the Astros.
Well, that's not looking good right now.
I know that's looking terrible.
That's not, and those words were not the words I was expecting to say. Right? The Astros could lose. They're not be eliminated.
But I think part of that, Nick, with it stinks for the Astros and Brewers and kind of collapse. But I think some of that, again, just like how you talk about the magic of this Mets season, you also talk about the magic of this Tiger season. Nick, I was watching Urinating Trees State of the Postseason. They were sellers at the deadline.
They were so deep under 500, like they were buried.
There were
buried.
Rumors of Struble getting traded.
Well, it's a good thing they didn't do that now.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden they're in it. They're in it, and the Royals are in it, and the Twins are out.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but I don't know. I'd be scared of the Royals a little bit just because they have some good pitching.
I would too. I would too for that reason. The thing is that's making me go to them though as the preferred opponent is because one, you just saw the last series the Yankees had with the Orioles and how they struggled in that.
They lost the season series against the Orioles.
That too. And number 2, the Astros, I mean, Nick, ever since 2015, they have consistently owned us in the playoffs.
But let's put a but on that. That was a totally different Astros team way back when.
There is that too. My point being, and especially Nick, you should win the pennant this year if the O's and the Astros get out. Also because for the current core group of guys, this is last chance. This is probably Rizzo obviously has his injury, but like we talked about that if they're going to have this heavy pursuit of Soto or Or if they go after somebody like an Alonso or some big name free, Rizzo's probably gone. Glaber's probably gone.
Glaber's long gone. That's my prediction on there.
I know he only came this year, so I can't call him part of the core, but Verdugo would be gone. Oh, Trevino's gone because Austin Wells is the future is the catcher of the future at this point.
And he looks good now too. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and you got, and knock on wood, it doesn't. But you got Cole with his opt out.
I don't. If they, I gotta be careful how I make this statement.
Nick, I was gonna be careful only because Nick BS.
Yeah, but Cole's got injuries, and the money that he has in the opt out is going to be more than he probably gets in the market.
Well, remember the Yankees can counter the opt out, but they have to add another year to the deal.
Then they should. I think it might be worth it.
Especially Nick, if obviously we can't exactly predict this because of the deadline, for the opt out and the option, everything, especially given Soto's situation, but you can't lose Soto and Cole in the same offseason. So I don't think you can take the chance. You got to add the other year.
I think the statement I was trying to make, and I clarified it in my head, was if they make the World Series, I think they'll get Soto back. I think even if they don't win the World Series, they got to get to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that shows Soto in his mind, we can possibly win something.
Right, because remember, the Nationals offered him the biggest contract basically ever, and he said no because
he knew there was no future there.
Exactly. That's what I said when it first happened. He wants to make money, a lot of money, but he also wants to be on a contender.
Well, I also think New York, and we say this about every sport in New York. New York's a different beast.
Well, not everybody is able to play in New York and receive it. Look how Soto and the Yankee fans receive one another.
Well, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying it's a different beast of like there's more opportunity. There's more.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, the way that they treat one another, like, it seems like Soto wants to be here. And
he fits in with the bleacher creatures is what you're talking about. Yes.
And he fits in with the locker room with
Yeah.
Judge and Jazz and the kids, Wells and Volpe. Yeah, he fits right in.
See, and this, I don't know if you agree with this either, but they're kind of half pregnant when it comes to young and older players. Like, they can't decide which way they're trying to lean. They're trying to push into the new era of younger players. But you still have a Stanton who you're stuck with. Judge, you signed, so you have him.
Well, you have to hope, Nick, that the Stanton we see this season, considering how he slimmed down and everything, obviously he has his cold streaks, especially when he's not playing every day. Boom. But you have to hope that this season is the start of now consistency, that we can end the contract on some really, in the last, 2 years, 3 or 4, however long that this is the Stanton we get now.
Yeah, I hope so. But in the long run, I think the team, if everything goes this way, the one team you're going to have to watch is the Guardians because you don't know what team you're going to get from them.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
It should be a fun playoff.
I hope so.
Who's not sniffing the playoffs, though? The Chicago White Sox, who they did it, Nick. They actually managed to win games at the end of the year, but they still did it. 121 losses. The new worst record in MLB history.
I mean, the Mets can finally breathe a sigh of relief.
Oh, this Mets season is great. You made the play. Remember, the Mets were supposed to punt this year, and they made the postseason, and they got to get some of their slimy history off of themselves.
I mean, and we're going to talk about the letter because Reinsdorf pulled off a letter like Jeff Fisher, and I'm looking at this letter, and one thing that stood out to me already is that Chris Getz came out and said that they're not willing to invest in the offseason.
And the man is keeping his job. Nick, no matter what happens with the Yankees, Brian Cashman can't lose his job now. I don't understand.
On that logic, yes.
I don't understand how a guy is responsible for the worst team in Major League history, refuses to invest in players, and is going to keep his job. I don't understand how, what's his name, Harriman and the Angels lose the best player in modern baseball right now for nothing, waste away the career of another great.
Do they realize how much? Well, the Angels missed out on how much they could have gotten back in return if they traded him. Like, they could have restocked their whole system, plus on the major league roster if they had done that. But
it goes back to what I said 2 weeks ago, Nick. There can't be any accountability for general managers anymore.
Of course not. There's never accountability. Ask our GM as Yankee fans. He's not accountable for anything.
But my point, Nick. You know, we could talk about fire Boone, fire Cat. You by Getz keeping his job, you know what you've done to the general manager bar? Hold on. You have placed it here. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. I mean, I have two sounds to really round up, the White Sox season. So that's one. And then actually this one.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks.
I actually have one.
At all the failure.
That too. I mean, so I'll read some of the letter because, like, it's just funny when you read a letter like this.
Oh God.
Okay, this is it says it's from Jerry Reinsdorf, but it's probably another PR vehicle.
Probably from some either poor overworked PR person or from a poor overworked PR intern.
Probably. Okay. To White Sox fans, by all measures, our on-field performance this season was a failure. Gee, you think?
Oh, wait a minute. What did you say?
Look at all the failure.
As the leader of this organization, that is my ultimate responsibility. There are no excuses. That's paragraph 1. I want to thank you for continuing to support the team. Excuse me? Support the team? Did you see how empty the stadium was?
Did you not hear the chance of sell the team?
Right. I want to thank you for continuing to support the team throughout what was an embarrassing season. You all deserve better. This season's performance was completely unacceptable, and the varying reactions and emotions from our fan base are completely understandable. Well, if that's the case, why didn't you do something about it? Seriously. While embracing new ideas and outside perspectives, we will do everything we can to fix this for 2025 and the future. This will continue further development of players on our current roster. Wait a minute. Wait. So you're going to include further development of your roster, but your GM said he's not investing.
Nick, do you think there's a possibility that that 2025 Chicago White Sox could lose 122 games?
Yes. Get me like a DraftKings app. Can I go like over like 121?
I don't know if those odds are out yet.
I would take them. Okay, let's see. Evaluating the trade and free agent markets to improve our ball club and new leadership for our analytics department, allowing us to elevate and improve every process within our organization with a focus for competing for championships. In fact, change has already been happening in our baseball operations group throughout this past year. When named general manager in 2023, Chris Getz and his staff immediately began conducting a top-to-bottom evaluation of our existing operations. What?
So you're not even going outside. You're going to promote somebody from in, is what that sounds like.
Chris is rebuilding the foundation of our baseball operations department, with key personnel changes already happening in player development, international scouting, professional scouting, and analytics. Some of these changes will be apparent quickly, while others will need to produce the results we all want to see at the major league level. He sounds like he's talking out of his ass.
No kidding. He sounds like, Nick, you know what's going to happen? He sounds like the kind of person who's going to say, oh, we tried. And then when he does sell the team, you know who he probably will sell the team to?
The goddamn cowboy.
Oh, God.
And then we'll move the team to Texas. And we can have 3 Texas teams.
Oh, God.
Wait, no, actually, that won't work because the Texas teams are already playing the AL West.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Which is funny though, because didn't Reinsdorf? There were already rumors this year that he wanted to leave Chicago.
Nashville.
That's true, Nashville. Well, too bad for the MLB expansion plans then.
Yeah. So it says our organization's most important decision in the coming months is to evaluate and identify a new manager and leadership voice for this organization. Well, so much for Grady Sizemore. Chris is No, don't. You're going to speak that into existence. Chris is well underway with his search. He has identified the key attributes and performances for our next manager and has already begun an exhaustive search with a wide range of candidates to lead the White Sox. Oh, God, please don't be Tony La Russa again. Please don't be Tony La Russa again. Let's see. To lead the White Sox in the clubhouse and dugout. I don't know why they had to say it that way. Even in the worst of seasons, where at times it felt like nothing was going right, there were bright spots, oh boy, that provided reasons for optimism about our future.
Where were those?
Wait. The overall health of our organization is improving. Our minor league rankings show this growth. The Class AA Birmingham Barons won the Southern League title, while Class A Kannapolis reached the finals of the Carolina League, and our organization has built an impressive future pool of very talented prospects.
Whoop-de-freaking-do.
Wait a minute. You're caring about your AA and your single A teams making it to the finals?
I mean, Nick, the Birmingham Barons, I don't think have been relevant since Michael Jordan was playing for them.
Seriously.
But listen, I don't want to discredit the achievements of a team. I mean, you know how I feel about the minor leagues. I love the minor leagues, so credit to them for their accomplishments. My problem with it is just it's the White Sox and the fact that they're doing nothing to try and improve their situation.
This next statement is the one that you hear in every failed franchise, but they want to make you feel like we're working hard. Whether said out loud or written in a statement, words are easy. I understand we need to show our progress through action. And I commit to you that everyone associated with the White Sox is focused on returning this organization to the level of success we all expect and desire. Oh, so it's the whole hopes and dreams speech.
Here lies Chicago's hopes and dreams. What a baby.
That was good. Above everything else, I am a fan of baseball, of Chicago, and of the White Sox. Every loss this season, every blown save, every defensive miscue, every shutout, every sweep hurt.
I hear the commentary line already. Oh my goodness, the White Sox have gone full White Sox. The commentary, that is the commentary line of the year.
Let's see. It was a long, painful season for us all. We recognize on a daily basis that it is our responsibility to earn your trust, attention, time, and support. We vow to make that approach daily as we put in the work in this offseason to be better. We owe it to each and every one of you. Jerry Reinsdorf.
All right. Let's stop talking about the White Sox before we get it. Let's talk about another terrible owner in John Fisher.
Oh, yeah.
The A's era in Oakland's over. Unbelievable.
Yeah, so like you had said to me in prep meetings, like we talked about getting to the end of the season. Now, this is weird for us because we've been around for this long era of Oakland A's baseball. That's all we knew for Oakland.
Nick, are you ready for the Sacramento A's?
No. I don't know if I told you this, but do you know who owns the stadium in Sacramento?
Who?
Divac, the guy who owns the Kings.
Oh my God.
And you know what's even funnier about that? They're going there for free.
I mean, it is their minor league team. No.
Divac is giving them the stadium to use for free.
Again, it's their minor league team, so I guess they have.
And you know what Divac is basically standing on the front of, right? He's
What?
hoping that the team is such a failure that he could just buy the team or take it over when it's in Sacramento. I mean, I feel bad for White Sox fans. I feel bad for A's fans. Like, you don't deserve this nonsense.
No.
Like,
Like that. Those last sites of the Coliseum. I mean, they ended their run on the Coliseum on a high note.
they
way that
won.
they played.
Yeah.
But man, just seeing all those tears and everything, it was heartbreaking to see.
It was interesting because I saw some videos like where they had like some of the A's employees that were down or like in the bullpen, they were scooping dirt and putting it in people's water bottles to take home. Like, that's how much it meant like to fans coming to the stadium, even though the stadium was a shit show from time to time. And I'd probably say don't drink the water there. You do know they're keeping soccer there, though, right?
Are they really?
Yeah. So I'm starting to question now even more John Fisher's motives and like what he was trying to do, like or not wanting to pay the money. All these billionaires are the same. They're cheap assholes who. Like, oh, we can't pay for it. We can't. Yes, you can. You can pay for it. You just don't want to.
Speaking of big payouts, Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 home run ball. Yeah, it's getting at about $1.2 million right now in auction. However, the guy who caught the ball is also being sued by a young fan at the game who alleges that he was punched. Wow.
Okay, so I didn't hear that part officially. Do you know what that's about or no?
Yes. So I'll pull up the full thing, the full story.
Because I saw that he was getting sued. I thought it was over like something with the auction, like the Dodgers were going to get involved to try to stop it. That's what I thought they were talking about.
So this is two separate stories. So an 18-year-old from Florida says he had possession of Ohtani's 50th home run ball and claims that another fan at the game stole it from him.
Oh my God.
The home run hit by Ohtani, a lawsuit filed on behalf, claims that he, quote, was able to firmly grab the ball in his left hand, successfully obtaining possession of the 50-50 ball. However, shortly after he obtained possession, the defendant wrapped his legs around Max's arm, the kid's name is Max, and used his hands to wrangle the ball out of Max's hand, stealing the ball for himself.
I don't know. I remember seeing the video and there was like a dog pile over the ball.
But I feel like, Nick, this lawsuit is not going to stand because you just said, the dog pile that happens at major league games. It's what's an assumption of risk.
Exactly right. I mean, first of all, that lawsuit's going to get laughed at when it ends up on whoever's desk who has to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
You assume all the risk going after the ball, not other people. I mean, this is dumb. It's a frivolous lawsuit looking for money.
All right, let's get out of baseball because we're running out of time. We still have other stories that we got to get to. We have a few NBA stories. One involving my boys, the Knicks, getting Karl-Anthony Towns. But it is a package that involves trading Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo away. And then Charlotte was brought in, as a third team because of the money, then how that's got to play out. Nick, I feel the same way as I did on the breaking news stream that, I feel a little disappointed that we're losing these two. And, I'm happy. I'm ecstatic that we got Karl-Anthony Towns and Miles Bridges in the same offseason. Nick, neither of those two names were on my bingo card.
No.
That being said, my feelings about these kinds of moves and our lovely owner, James Dolan.
I want to know who signed off on this move, though.
Oh, if this was a Dolan move or this is what you said on Friday. If it was a Dolan move or if this was a Leon Rose move.
Let me be very clear. Dolan had to sign off on it regardless.
But was this originally his idea? But I know where you're going because there are connections with Leon Rose. Was this his idea?
I 100% think it's Leon Rose's idea because James Dolan's not making a genius trade like this.
And that's the thing. The fact that they were only the fact that they only had to give up Randle and DiVincenzo, I think, is the other insane.
Well, there was a first rounder they had to give up too.
Yeah, there was a first rounder there too. But Nick, again, I don't think we can have full thoughts about this until, I don't know, maybe there's an update that I missed because I'm busy the last few days. Again, it goes back to what I said on Friday. Why? You know, it reminds me, Nick, because of what you were saying on Friday, of several years ago, where myself and other Knicks said, you know, remember the infamous John Mara quote, "We didn't sign Odell just to trade him." And now here they signed Karl-Anthony Towns, Minnesota, and they traded him.
That's what doesn't make sense to me, and I'm trying to get that contract up really quick just so I can see.
I get maybe they think of Anthony Edwards and Pat Dana's favorite person.
Oh yeah,
as the future of this team, but
I wasn't ready for that.
Nasri!
I already played it. You know, I'll play it all the time
because I didn't hear it the first time. Okay, but I look at his contract. So he's got 4 years, well, technically 3, and a player option for 4th. He's making a lot of money. Yeah. A lot. He's making 49.2 coming up. Then he's going to make 53, 57, and then he's got a player option for 61. Which is a lot. It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But, and you astutely brought this up, and I agreed with it, that what is going on with the Timberwolves ownership group? We have no idea what's going on. Glenn Taylor was trying to sell it. And then, like, he was trying, Mark Laurie and A-Rod, like, there was a deal that they had to get the money by, and they didn't. So, like, because of the agreement, Glenn Taylor got it back. This team is in disarray. And I'm talking about the T-Wolves, not the Knicks. And if I'm a T-Wolves fan right now, and remember, I said this more in jest than in truth, but you don't think they had his poster plastered all over around the stadium, and now you have to explain to your fans that you traded your biggest star away? Well, okay, let me debate that. Anthony Edwards could probably be their biggest star, but Karl-Anthony Towns was definitely a 1B, if anything. And now, if I'm a season ticket holder, well, all right, I'll ask you this question. If you were a Timberwolves season ticket holder and you see Karl-Anthony Towns was traded, would you be pissed off?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Exactly. You'd be pissed off. Now, don't get me wrong. Anthony Edwards is a really good player, but now you don't have a 1B to your 1A.
And that's the thing, because I'm reading a New York Times article here that basically talks about the trade. You know, it mentions some ways the deal wasn't a surprise because people knew with the Timberwolves' financial situation that major moves would have to come in some regard. But you had KAT in the area. You had KAT recording, you know, preseason footage. It didn't look like any, and that's the other part of this. Less than a month before the season starts, this news drops.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't know if they went through all you probably saw it over the list week. A lot of people probably did. They're doing all the jersey pictures of like the stars as the PR for the season. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know if they did that already. Like if they were putting that stuff out.
Okay. Here's the part from New York Times. As the Timberwolves analyzed their cap situation and looked at the landscape across the league, it was getting harder and harder for the Wolves to see a scenario where they could keep this team intact beyond this season, team sources said. Edwards is beginning a 5-year max contract this season. Gobert has 2 years remaining on his max, and Towns was starting a 4-year, $220 million max extension this season. Add to it big raises for McDaniels this season and Reed last season, and the Wolves had entered the dreaded second apron that brings with it luxury tax penalties and obstacles for team building meant to strongly discourage teams from crossing that threshold for more than a couple of seasons. One of the only paths forward for keeping everyone together was to win the championship and cash in on the enormous playoff revenue that comes with it. The Wolves will enter the season hoping to make it that far, but playing in a deep Western Conference makes that a treacherous path.
I think you made it worse by trading him away, to be quite honest. And I'm tired of this whole narrative that they're talking about the second apron and teams. Look at the Golden State Warriors as an example. They blew by the aprons and paid the money. And what do we look at the Warriors for now? They won 3 titles.
Right.
So don't give me that excuse of I'm not willing to spend the money. It's too much money.
And basically,
it's ridiculous.
basically, according to New York Times, it was they chose to trade KAT instead of potentially, or should say more likely, having to part ways with Reed and Alexander Walker.
You're telling me you just what you said before. You said they just signed. Read that sentence again. Read the sentence about where you just said they just signed Karl-Anthony Towns.
Right. The $220 million. Yeah. That they do also note here that they like DiVincenzo, his combination of shooting and wing defense, perfect fit for the roster, they feel, alongside a great team of defenders with Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and Alexander Walker.
You know how ridiculous that statement sounds, right?
A little bit.
I mean, it helps the Knicks. Totally. I mean, you lose a good shooter in Donte DiVincenzo, but I think you're willing to sacrifice Donte DiVincenzo for Karl-Anthony Towns, which now gives you a star big man to play next to your star point guard who doesn't feel like he has to do everything on the court anymore. Now, will he fit in New York? That's a whole different scenario, because playing in Minnesota and playing in New York, totally different.
For sure.
But the other thing I was going to say earlier was that Karl-Anthony Towns' agency, his management, claimed that they had no idea the trade was coming also. Are we really going to play that dumb?
I do think a little. Listen, I understand your point, but at the same time, it goes back to what I said before. We're right before the start of the season.
Well, that's why it doesn't make sense, is what I'm saying.
Like, I would think the blind side that there's a little truth in that since we're so close, and he was already in, doing warm-ups and doing preseason videos with the team, that like the expectation was that KAT was going to be a part of this team this season.
So, according to Shams, who was on with McAfee when they were talking about this,
yeah,
according to Shams, apparently they were working on this deal for months. So now nothing adds up.
No.
Because if they were working on this for months, why didn't they get it done? I mean, are we talking about trade deadline if we're talking about months? Possibly,
but then to say, the only way we would have kept everybody together was to win the championship. I mean, when you were playing in a really rough conference, and then Nick, let's be honest. Was this Timberwolves team actually going to beat the Celtics in the finals?
No, of course not. No.
And honestly, you look at this Timberwolves team right now, Nick, I don't think they beat the Celtics. I don't think they beat the Knicks right now.
They don't even beat their own conference.
Yeah. No, I'm saying I don't think they beat the Celtics. I don't think they beat the Knicks. I think the Nuggets are going to have a fire under them after the way they lost last season, that I don't think they beat the Nugs.
It's tough to say, but I think they'll definitely have a better turnaround.
I think the Mavericks are going to have a chip on their shoulder after making it to the finals. I don't think they beat the Mavs.
I mean, as much as Klay Thompson is on the decline, I think a fresh perspective might help him.
Yeah.
So I think that team is going to be really good. I don't know if they're...
But my point is, I agree with you. I think they've made the job a little harder on themselves now.
Of course they did, because they got rid of one of their franchise cornerstones. Like, usually... You have to hope Anthony Edwards continues to develop into the franchise cornerstone that you think he's going to. Okay, but one star... What is that dumb saying that we used to say? Yes.
I know. But I'm saying, they must have real high expectations on him and Naz Reid for them to make this kind of move.
Okay,
you better hope.
But Naz Reid is not a A-plus player. Don't get me wrong. I like Naz Reid. His role was perfect behind Karl-Anthony Towns. But now you're going to force him into a starting lineup? His
role was the sixth man.
Yes, thank you. That's the term I was looking for. And now you're going to put him in the starting lineup. He's going to get eaten alive out there playing against starters.
You know what the sixth man reminds me of, Nick? The designated hitter in baseball, and that there are just some people that can't be a designated hitter. They have to be in the field and playing every day. There are some people who their specialty is being the sixth man, being ready off that bench to all of a sudden make an impact. Some guys can be a great sixth man and others can't be.
I'll give you an example. One who former Celtic, actually, DeMarcus Smart was a good sixth man. Even though he started a lot of games, by the time the playoffs came, he really fit like the end of the first unit, but the beginning of the second unit. And that's where he really fit. And who's the I always forget this. The guy on the Celtics who made the Olympics this year, the point guard. I'm
Drew
trying to look.
Holiday, Derek White.
Derek White. Thank you. Derek White is that same type where like he's an end of first unit, but beginning of second unit type guy. He's the reason that really glued the team together to win. Him and Jaylen Brown were the reasons that they won the title. I don't see that on the Timberwolves anywhere. Anthony Edwards is a star and will be a star. He will win MVPs. He will be one of the best players in the NBA for many years to come. But don't tell me Naz Reid and McDaniels and Alexander. Like, that's not a team. You know what it reminds me a little bit, and then we'll move on quick, is it reminds me of LeBron on the Cavs, where LeBron was the big star. He had to carry that team on his back. But what happened every single time? Ran out of gas.
Except 2016.
Well, okay. But my point, for the most part, he would run out of gas until he learned how to win with other stars.
Nick, I don't know how Pat's going to agree with you on that because Pat still, I think, wants to take Naz Reid to Bora Bora.
That'll always be the funniest clip of all time. Always.
Unfortunately, another passing that we got to talk about. Another shocking one. Dikembe Mutombo.
58 years old.
Didn't he have a form of brain cancer?
Yeah, brain cancer. Yep. Unfortunately.
Nick, to show the impact that he had, I still do the
No, not today.
I hope they start to air that Geico commercial again in tribute to him.
I kind of hope they do. That was probably one of the funniest commercials they ever made. Like, I mean, the guy had an impact on the sport. Was he the big name offensive player making money? No,
but that wasn't what he was known. He was known for defensive work.
No, I'm saying like you don't have to be the big name to make an impact.
Correct. He was known for his defensive work. He was known for his blocking. And Nick, wasn't he a part of? I think it was an 8 seed. I think it was the Nuggets. The first 8 seeds
to beat Seattle.
Yeah, they beat Seattle in the playoffs. Yeah,
that was an incredible series too. Also, he is in the Hall of Fame. He went in 2015. Is he going to be the best Hall of Famer of all time? No, but he made an impact in more ways than just the court. People forget, like he became the first global ambassador for the NBA, and I think he was working on a ton of. Like he was going overseas, finding cures for stuff. And I'm trying to find some of the stuff because like his story just stands out in a way that you don't see a nicer guy like him.
I was gonna say I've heard nothing but just how sweet of a man that he was off the court.
Yeah, so he was an ambassador, a sportsman, a humanitarian.
Grew up, was born in Congo,
right?
Republic of Congo.
So he was a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, an 8-time All-Star, and one of the very few to have their jersey retired by multiple franchises.
The rebounds, and the blocks was what he was known for. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. Retired, but his number was retired by the Hawks and by the Nuggets.
Also, it
8-time All-Star.
Yeah, it says he was also one of the patron saints of Basketball Without Borders. He traveled everywhere, all over the world to grow the game in that regard.
I forgot towards the end of his career, he was for 1 season in net and 1 season in Nick.
Yes. Yeah, towards the very end, he kind of bounced around.
I would say not the tail end because he actually did spend 5 or 6 years with the Rockets after that.
Which people forget about that too. The guy had an impact more. I would say more off the court than on the court. He had a good career. Don't get me wrong.
He's in number one. He's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. Part of that reason is one of the best centers that I think we've ever seen, at least in our lifetime.
Right. And it says Mutombo built a tuition-free school in the DRC. I'm assuming that's
Republic of Congo.
Republic of Congo, to honor his father, a career educator.
Yeah, I think his father was a principal.
Yes, and it says in memory of his mother who died in 1998 of a stroke, but really of poor access to healthcare. He built a hospital too. Like, this guy, like, did everything. Like, there's not going to be another one like Dikembe Mutombo.
No, and it's awful that we lose him at such a young age.
And like it says here, the game, the finger wags, the commercials, all of it raised Mutombo's profile and helped fund his next project. In 2009, the NBA named Mutombo its first global ambassador. The Geico commercials. He also did work for the Boys and Girls Club. What has this guy not done?
One of the most charitable basketball players there's ever been.
So, I dare somebody to say something bad about Dikembe Mutombo because you won't find it.
You see how basketball players today, Nick, are so connected with charity, helping youth and all these movements.
It's because of Mutombo.
Socially, politically, Mutombo is the reason why.
You need someone like him. Like that, he kind of glued the NBA perspective, the players, to charitable efforts.
He is a reason, Nick, not the reason, but one of several reasons and several stars why the NBA is such a global game.
Agreed, because he traveled quite literally everywhere. Excuse me, if he could travel to it, he would find a way in that regard. But yeah, no, this is a tough one for sure.
All right, couple more stories I gotta quickly get through. So Woj is gone. So who is taking over next? Well, Jeff Passan and Adam Schefter have both been considered for the NBA beat. For Passan, the rumor would be he would leave baseball to go over to basketball. Schefter, he would take on both NFL and NBA duties.
Does he not want to have a life?
We talked about how hard of a job it is to be an insider. But then today, Nick, once again, like I mentioned it last week, and now starting to trickle in a little bit more, the Shams to ESPN rumor again.
I don't see how that doesn't happen.
Neither do I.
I mean, first of all, you have a direct connection right inside your network with Pat McAfee, who has them on like every other day. I mean, hey Pat, I could see ESPN, I could see Jimmy Bataro like calling Pat. Hey Pat, do you mind just like giving him a quick little nudge and just sign with us? Like, just help us out here. But he has all types of offers. I mean, excuse me, that NBC and Amazon are going to come calling because they're going to have the NBA. The Athletic wants to keep him also. But Passan, please don't leave baseball. Please don't leave baseball. That's a mistake. Yeah. Schefter moonlighted as a sideline reporter for ESPN, but don't do it. Please, I'm begging you.
Well, we don't know what the state of ESPN's basketball coverage is right now. I mean, we know they have the NBA for years, but they go and then fire Zach Lowe in the middle of all this too.
I don't know what they're doing. Like I just said, like you said, and I told you, like the NBA rights, they just signed a massive deal to retain the rights, and you're just getting rid of people left and right. Like the rumor I heard is they want to elevate or that, what's that stupid
Brian Windhorst?
Yeah, that. Yeah, Brian Windhorst. That's what I meant to do. Yes.
You meant to do the what does this mean?
I mean, he definitely would get the viral views for sure if he became the top insider, but I don't know. This is stupid. I mean, he will find somewhere else. Zach Lowe will I think he's going to end up at the Ringer, especially because Bill Simmons basically just took a shit on ESPN for making the moves. I mean that quite literally. He did a whole podcast on it, which I've never... That was incredible. I mean...
You have to be pretty pissed off to do something like that.
I mean, I'm sure they knew each other when they were both at Grantland, which was part of ESPN. This is stupid. And I heard Andrew Marchand on his new podcast, and he was talking about this too, that basically You paid him to do a job. He's doing the job. Now you think it's too much money. So why did you pay him then? Oh, God. I feel like I'm repeating the same thing over and over again. Same thing with Karl-Anthony Towns. Why did you pay him then? If you knew you were just going to get rid of him.
Yeah. One last thing, Nick, because we have to talk about it because this news kind of broke the day we're recording this. We were going to talk about how Antonio Pierce had a little case of the Twitter slip up and hit like on a post that basically said that Adams played his last game in Las Vegas. Well, as of a few hours before this started recording, Nick, Davante Adams has now officially requested a trade out of Las Vegas.
I mean, whoop-de-doo. Should I be surprised about that?
Nick, I wonder how it feels because your team has a certain somebody that's connected to Davante Adams, quite literally on the football field, connecting passes with him.
RELAX.
This is the first time I actually have to say, yeah, I agree. Like I can't deny it. Like if it happens, it makes the team better. But what are you giving up for him, though? That's the $100 million question.
Wasn't the latest reports that it's something like a third?
They were saying a third, but with all the competition, I think eventually it'll be a first.
Well, you say competition because I think there is one team that's going to be.
There's one logical team that makes 100% sense here.
Now, under most circumstances, I would say it's not logical because it's forming just the super team and stuff. But now that the Chiefs, I think Rashee Rice is probably going to be done for the year at this point.
I would say so. I would say so.
So now you have a major opening in Kansas City who is going to be, I don't know if I would say, I'll say it, desperate for a three-peat to make history.
I mean, I don't know if they're desperate for three-peat. They'd be happy if they won 3 in a row. But
they're craving it. They're salivating.
I mean, it would be the first time, I think, right?
Yeah, first time. So they're going to want, they want to be the evil empire of the NFL.
They've had bad luck, though. They've had bad luck with injuries. They lost Pacheco, who might come back at the end of the season, but who knows? Now they lose Rice, which I think that was an actual torn ACL, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So that's usually a season ender. Usually. They need Davante Adams more than the Jets. As sick as that sentence sounds. And I almost barfed in my own mouth thinking about that. But I don't know. Like, does Davante Adams make the Jets an automatic contender?
I think they're already in play because, Nick, like I said on the last football forecast, I think they're already in play considering the Dolphins are now basically screwed, cooked, as the kids would say, because now they don't have they're down to their third string quarterback. And you saw their play on Monday night with Tyler Huntley. It was horrific. So
and full disclosure, you remember what I said. Like, I'm picking them, but I have no faith in either side whatsoever.
Yeah, but like
the Titans.
I know, I know. But I don't think, I played lone wolf there and I eat my crow, but I don't think any of us
Yeah, but I don't blame you either.
No, but I don't think any of us expected that bad.
No one expected a thrashing of the Dolphins.
Like Tyler Huntley, Nick, has experience in the NFL as a backup for Lamar Jackson.
He looked awful, by the way.
He looked lost.
Well, also the defense looked lost.
The defense, yeah. This was so. I think the Jets are already contender because at this point the AFC East is a 2-team race between them and the. If you get Davante Adams, now you're really in the mix.
The issue you're going to run into is, as Garrett Wilson, it's the classic number one wide receiver ego.
Oh, Garrett Wilson, is he going to feel replaced?
I mean, that's not a bad one, too, if you think about it.
Right.
But is he going to feel like, oh, I was the number one, now I got to take a back seat to Davante Adams?
I was going to say, if Aaron is talking, because if Aaron is actually pulling the strings, he's got to pull Garrett Wilson aside and explain everything.
Listen, if you want to win a title this year, let me go get Davante Adams. Him, not the ownership, me.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's tampering. But that's our favorite word on this show, if you didn't know.
Right up there next to conspiracy.
Yeah, and by the way, the one thing I want to say, the Jets got embarrassed this week also, losing to Denver.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could raise you one embarrassment with another embarrassment. Miami and New York look awful this week. Do I agree the team would be 1,000% better with Davante Adams? Yes, but who are you giving up to get Davante Adams? A pick is not going to suffice it, right?
Yeah,
They're going to have to give up something.
yeah. I don't know exactly.
Unless
what.
you're giving up a first rounder and saying, hey, we'll give you a first rounder, you give us Davante, and we call it a wash. I just don't see that, though. I don't know. I mean, I'm concerned just because they lost to the Broncos, and that's not good. That was the team you were supposed to beat. So just bringing another receiver doesn't necessarily fix the problem.
No.
All right. Is there anything else left?
Nope. Let's close it out.
All right. So that'll do it for episode 252 of Empty the Bench. Make sure you like and subscribe to our ETB Network YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. We are very close to 900 subscribers and to 1,000. When we get to 1,000, way more things can happen. So please help us out. Make sure you check out Playback or youtube.com/ETB Network for our YouTube channel. But make sure you check us out on Playback, playback.tv/ETB Network. The NBA is near, and we are going to be doing a ton of NBA because that is the direct partner of Playback. So we have way more access to NBA games. So make sure you check us out on that front because we're going to be very busy during that season. Do we have anything else coming up in the schedule or no?
Just listen wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to Playback. We're going to have Fight Study Thursday. Myself, Zambando, Pat Dana. Time to be announced. Check the MMA Outsiders social medias for an official start time for that. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. I mean, good episode. If I can grab what I was grabbing over here, that would actually be good. There we go. So for Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.
See you, everyone.